Thanks, everybody. It's my pleasure to introduce Xiaozhong Liu, who comes to us now from Worcester Polytechnic, but has worked at a number of other places, including Indiana University, as we were just discussing. We're really pleased to have him here to bring a computer science perspective to this important topic. Dr. Liu.
Thank you very much. Okay, great. So thank you very much for this introduction. It's my pleasure to talk about some recent work I'm working on. It's misinformation. Can we totally remove it? Pay attention, totally remove it. So, okay, so before I start my talk, I want to scope my presentation a little bit. So misinformation from technical viewpoint, misinformation just is a kind of information. Okay, so pay attention. This is the umbrella. This is the background of this talk. So misinformation is from computer science, from AI perspective. This is just a kind of information. And so block misinformation unfortunately means whether we're able to use some technicals, either social technicals or from our AI perspective, to block a kind of information. So, okay, so I decided to come back. This one doesn't work very well. Sorry for that. So we don't completely trust technologies, right? So I have three different things here. So number one is, can we implement the algorithm to effectively detect a kind of information? Or you say replace with misinformation. Can we do that? The second one is, can we implement the algorithm to perfectly detect this kind of information? And the third one is, can we implement the algorithm to perfectly detect this kind of information with an affordable cost? So I can first provide my own conclusion. Maybe I'm wrong. And the first one, yes, we can. Second one, yes and no. Well, the third one, no. Okay, so my conclusion here, first my conclusion is, we cannot perfectly detect misinformation or kind of information with an affordable cost, at least in the United States of America. And so the existing algorithm, also called sometimes computational propaganda, is we can extract some important feature, some important information, either from a kind of information, maybe from social media, or from another resource. And for example, Wikipedia, do some comparison, and we can use like a deep learning and NLP technologies to detect and make AI algorithm to predict whether this is a true information or misinformation. So there's a number of works, AI studies to investigate this topic. But I want to pay attention to this one. This feature is particularly interesting is to see malicious account. Okay, malicious account from social media. For instance, if I somehow find there is a social media, a user, for example, I myself, I wrote some bad information, maybe I generated disinformation earlier, and so my account will probably go to the alert list, and also my neighborhood also probably on the alert list. So algorithm will pay additional attention to this kind of account, and statistically this algorithm works really well because it can successfully detect increase the chance of detect misinformation or disinformation. So for instance, earlier, we find that during the president election, like we find a large number of malicious accounts, and by using this algorithm, we can successfully detect some kind of a misinformation or disinformation by using these account features. Okay, so for instance, the AI algorithm we built earlier, including the features, including the author and the publisher, the headline and the body of the text, and some image and video and other kind of features. So once again, I want you to pay a little bit closer attention to the author and the publisher here, because at the back end, we have a large social network data. Means the algorithm was able to locate a specific account or a group of account here. And when we apply this information, this feature, the AI algorithm really appreciate that, and you can find performance increase, even though like 80% or 90% of accuracy, which is pretty good. However, the algorithm never perfect because we have some errors here. So if you're familiar with that statistically, so we have type 1 error and the type 2 error. So it's like, this is a good information, but the AI believe this is a misinformation. Or to say this is a misinformation, but the AI believe this is a good information. So this is 2 errors. Even though the proportion can be small, but still AI algorithm may make mistake. So we want to pay attention to these 2 kind of errors that AI made. So it's unfair, right? So for certain account, this is unfair because they may release some good information, but the AI just believe your misinformation because earlier, maybe you or your neighborhood on the social media released some bad information. So we believe you are also going to generate some bad information. So can we improve? So yes, we can. So the algorithm right now provide a better strategies, AI detection plus human confirmation. So these 2 things work simultaneously, so not just depend on one thing independently. So the AI algorithm may detect some information initially, and we provide for human annotators or human checkers, sensors to provide a judgment. And when human provides some judgment, we will provide another feedback to the AI model. So AI models will get additional training data to train their model. This is a mutual beneficial, mutual improvement. Another way is if we find some very dangerous account. For example, we believe this guy have a high chance to be disinformation generator or even like a terrorist. So maybe we will directly put his or her information to the human. To the human agent to provide some confirmation. So this is a good model. So we're doing. So, but the problem is who will pay the cost? And you find that the cost not just come from the AI algorithm, but also from humans, right? To provide the judgment. So who should be responsible to provide the cost? So you can find that if government defines the misinformation, so we have maybe a better reason to say the taxpayers may pay the cost, right? But if the platforms like the technical companies defines the misinformation, so probably they will need to pay for that. But there is another approach, the third approach, that government defines the misinformation, but they will force the technical companies, the platforms, to pay the cost to remove this kind of information. So here, I won't say guaranteed, but it's more like 1 and 3 is China way. Okay, so China way is they provide a very centralized misinformation definition. So you don't have any chance to negotiate with the government. Okay, like this is maybe this is not correct. But so government decision is decision. You just implement it. Okay, but in United States, you will find the platforms have a better chance to define the information. Like go back to the president election, and you find that there's still some news comes out about it, like the Donald Trump or Biden or Joe Biden family. So what kind of information is the misinformation? What is not? So you find that Twitter and Facebook and those companies have maybe a stronger role to define such information. So we find that for different, here I only provide 2 countries, but you find other countries like maybe Russia, maybe Europe, and you find that different countries define misinformation or disinformation in different ways. And remember, whenever you want to battle against such information, you need to pay the cost. And sometimes taxpayer will pay for that, and sometimes the company will need to pay for that. But someone will have to pay. Okay, so I just bring it here to make you alert for this kind of cost. Okay, so here I provide a good example is this one, Toutiao. Toutiao is a Chinese media. It's very successful. I think its active user is even larger than like a Facebook and Twitter. So this is really, really huge. And so this Toutiao, this is the world maybe largest news service provider. So they recruit more than 10,000 humans to annotate the misinformation. Okay, so they invest a lot of money along with the AI algorithm to detect what kind of information is. Once again, here I use misinformation, but misinformation in different countries defined in different way. Okay, so maybe in China they defined misinformation, but here you believe this is true information. But you have to follow in China. This is not negotiable, so you have to follow the rules from the government. So, but they invest a lot of money. So Total, if you don't familiar with the company, it's a parent company. It's called ByteDance, and ByteDance have another company owned. It's called TikTok. So everybody probably very familiar with that. All right, so which means if we use this feature, unfortunately, United States of America, so it can be unfair. Two users, okay, two users. If the first user says something, second user says something, maybe the content is very, very similar. But if the first user is a Trump supporter or have a lot of neighbors, they all Trump supporters, so they have a higher chance, this piece of information have a higher chance to be detected as a misinformation, unfortunately. Because of machine learning really learn the account information, account behavior information. Well, the same thing in China. So if you have ever protest for example, COVID-19 quarantine policy, and then unfortunately you will be on the blacklist, and everything you said have a very high chance to be detected as misinformation. So I wanted to pay attention. So this AI algorithm is not entirely trustful. It can be somehow biased. And I won't go very deep into technology, but a number of algorithms, for example, this one is by using graph mining. So they'll be able to locate detect misinformation quite successfully by using the account ID, by using the IP address, the posting ID, and article ID. So there are a lot of ID information being used to improve the performance of the AI model for misinformation detection. And you will find some Euro connectivities there and some Euro activities there. Okay, you will find then activities, not just the content information, but also their activity information can be really important for AI algorithm. But so once again, by using this feature means the result can be biased, somehow biased. I won't say highly biased. And it's not working, pay attention, it's not working for small platforms. Because when we have small platforms, when a platform do not have a lot of users, so then this connectivity, this activity features will be not as rich as the big platform like Facebook and LinkedIn and the Twitter. Okay, so this can be somehow unfair if a government say all the platforms should be accountable for misinformation generation. So pay attention, it can be very unfair for small platform because technology-wise, it is very, very challenging for them to successfully detect such information compared with the large companies. So we want to pay attention to that. So let's see a case study. Okay, so here if we talk about the governance of content moderation. So if a user somehow release a misinformation from Twitter, if that's the case, and Twitter believe this is a misinformation, and so what they can do is either they can remove this specific post or they can block this account. Okay, this is Twitter's private decision. Well, it's easier for this user, what they can do is just change to a different form and release the same information or change the format somehow. For example, earlier, I just released a text information, but on maybe Facebook, I just released a picture, or maybe on YouTube, I release a video, or I can go to my comfortable zone like a Peller, right? Release the information there. You enjoy a lot of extra flexibility. You can say whatever you want, maybe. And so this information, platform-based moderation, I give you some warning, this can be somehow risky. The reason is, if Twitter, simply take a look at this, compare these two things. Twitter's popularity actually goes down after president election when Twitter do something aggressive, block many, many accounts, including Donald Trump's account. And then the popularity of Peller goes up very aggressively. Okay, but recently you find also Truth Social. And we find recently after Elon Musk purchased Twitter, so they changed their moderation policy, and you find the popularity of Peller and Truth Social actually goes down. Okay, a lot of users just comes back. So I wanted to pay attention. So when you put very strong platform-based content moderation, so this not necessarily a good thing because users, they're very flexible. They can choose different platform and they can switch, right? So which will not just decrease the diffusion of disinformation or misinformation, but rather increase such diffusion. So this can be somehow risky because in the United States, there's a very strong political and social polarization. So users can escape from one platform to the other. Is there any way to address the issue? Yes, we can. So for instance, if a government have control, like a political, like a policy control, say that all the platforms, they should provide a centralized definition for misinformation or disinformation, or like maybe the government will host this kind of a misinformation detection or removal service in an agent company and to a third agent company. So this model will work, okay? Mathematically or algorithmically, it will work. However, think about, once again, the cost of the taxpayers. Okay, the cost of the taxpayers and the platform accountability. So whether this is a good thing or this is not a good thing. So pay attention to that. And I wanted to compare this model actually very, very successful in China. Okay, so government is called CAC, Cyberspace Administration of China, and they provide a centralized definition of misinformation and disinformation. So they control everything. And they have access and control all the content from all the social media platforms, large one and small one, no matter who you are. So the platform accountability, user accountability, and also editorial accountability for this kind of information generation. So which means if you generate something, government label you as a misinformation, so user may have a great trouble, and the platform may have a great trouble. Okay, so whether this is just cost, pay attention. This is not just cost of money, but there's very strong social cost and social concern. So it's whether this kind of models will work in Europe and America. I would say this can be very, very risky. Okay, so this is I code this one from a paper. So like a Toutiao, which I show you the company from like a TikTok, the same company from TikTok. Right now they use more than 180 AI models to detect, call that misinformation, and they recruit a huge number of agents to help to locate, to annotate this kind of information. So the cost can be, this kind of censorship can be really, really huge. So once again, will United States be able to afford the cost? I think that's very risky. And another very, very, very effective approach, tomorrow I'm going to talk more about that, compare misinformation between US and China. So here in China, they use a real name ID system. So which means before you release any information, not just the content information or picture information, even you click like or I don't like, before you do anything, release any kind of information, you have the first registration with your real name and real ID. So think about every people here. So if in the United States, if I say whenever you release any information, you have to provide the platform your social security number, are you comfortable? Are you comfortable doing that? But I can tell you that this methodology is very successful to control misinformation. But this is the cost. This is social cost. We American people, European people accept this cost. It means those big platforms will have a chance to touch your privacy. So not just within one system, but across system, will you be able to accept that? And I wanted to pay attention that we have two kinds of models. So the one model is we have a super big Twitter, even though I don't like that. And we have a very small other social media like Parler and Truth Social, but it's easier to control misinformation. Because technology-wise, AI-wise, Twitter will get a lot of, once again, account behavior information, which will help AI model to find out misinformation. Well, if we have another way, like a Twitter, they have competitors like Truth Social and Parler. So if they have almost same size, so I would say this can be more challenging for any platform to detect misinformation, because the user can escape from one platform to the other, and the different platform may have different ideologies, and also technical-wise, AI-wise, is more challenging for the platforms to collect enough data to detect misinformation behavior. I borrowed a slide from tomorrow, so I want to talk about this guy. This guy is very famous last month. This guy is a very smart Chinese boy called Hu Chenfeng. Hu Chenfeng is a very smart young people. He's just released some videos in Chinese social media, just like YouTube here. So he did one social experiment. So he's trying to help vulnerable senior people. So they randomly pick some senior people on the street and ask him or her how much you make after, if you retire already, so how much money you make per day for your retirement income. And he will pay this income and ask these senior people to purchase something from the supermarket and find how much maybe food or some other product they can get for their 1 day retirement income. So this is what he did. I think this is a really good way, right, to help to make people more aware the vulnerability of senior people. I think this is a really good social experiment because vulnerable people not just exist in China, but also in the United States. I think all the countries should pay more attention to senior people, their vulnerability. But however, he did this experiment last month, okay, and attract many people. A lot of people click this video and say something positive. So this is a good experiment. Oh, these people, because in the video, finally he find a senior lady, and this senior lady, her income, retirement income, monthly retirement income is about $15 US, so which is very, very tiny. So this lady, old lady, even cry in this video and say, I really appreciate you give me just $15 purchase, which helped me a lot. So that the lady really appreciate that, and the lady cry. And that's the reason, and this video attract many clicks. And the consequence for that is the platform later, after getting many clicks, and the platform decide this is a disinformation. Even though this is true information, but they call that disinformation. And the video was removed. And all the videos of his account removed. Everything, all the videos. Okay, and you can think about this young man is a significant proportion of the income come from those videos. So all his video being removed. And meanwhile, multiple accounts, social media account was frozen. So not just this social media account, but all the social media accounts, okay, in China is frozen. Maybe not all, but multiple accounts were frozen. And the reason is you cannot make money by using vulnerable people. That's a good reason, right? So you cannot make money from people who's vulnerable. So that's well, the other one is you cannot criticize China's economy development, because this video find out that some people have very low income, very senior people. So this is two reasons. Part of the reason. Okay, I just list two reasons here why this video is being removed. So, but later I do some search online on Chinese social media. So, when they say they want to protect vulnerable people, okay, so you cannot make money by using vulnerable people. So, is that really comprehensive decision? So take a look at these three. So I translate somehow. These three topics are very, very popular on Chinese social media. It's like a U.S. political system is killing U.S. So U.S. people are dying. They're dying. They're very bad situation. And Biden support drug abuse. And the second one. Well, the third one is Black Lives Matter makes U.S. a very horrible place to stay. So this kind of information is everywhere on Chinese social media. So they are using vulnerable people, but vulnerable people from US and to make money. But this kind of information is just distributed everywhere. So you'll find that I give you this example to show you there is really an impossible trinity here. Okay, so this is the cost. The cost is, the first one is misinformation removal, another free speech, another is information censorship. So this is an impossible infinity. So you cannot achieve all of this simultaneously. You may have to sacrifice something, okay? You may have to sacrifice something to achieve the others. So which one? I mean, of course, you find China, Russia, Iran, so maybe they choose one way. Well, Europe and American maybe choose different ways. But do you really want to do something aggressive to change the situation? So that's a very significant question to ask. Well, for the rest of the talk, I want to talk about AI here. So, well, where the misinformation comes from. So let's talk about that a little bit from AI perspective, because my research is natural language processing and deep learning. So I want to give you a scenario. So let's say I'm looking for something. Okay, I'm looking for something. Maybe in 50 or 60 years ago, so what I'm doing is I go to library, okay, locate the information I'm looking for, which will spend me like 1 day or 2. And later I think this is not smart enough, not effective enough. So maybe some media, okay, help me to summarize some information. And I definitely appreciate the efforts from the editor. Maybe he or she read a lot of books and help me to summarize something, okay? But unfortunately, when they summarize the content, they will provide their own view. So maybe this is a bias. And you can find it like Fox News, Newsmax, and CNN. They consume very same information in a very different way, right? So this is what we can do. And later we think, a lot of people say, I don't want to read, okay? Give me something quicker. It's okay, we have YouTube. So I summarize everything into 20 minutes video, and you learn a lot, like efforts from BBC, from Voice of America. This is what they do. Great. Okay, and later they think young people believe, oh, this is so boring. I don't want to spend 20 minutes in front of the YouTube. So let's be quick, all right? TikTok. So for instance, I am an environmentalist. So I go to elementary school to teach the young kids to say why we should protect environment. But I find young kids more interested in pouring some soups on very expensive paintings. They believe this 20 minutes, the 20 seconds video is much more impressive than my speech. Okay, so this is the power of TikTok. And later we have ChatGPT, and ChatGPT doing something more aggressive, because earlier what we're doing is information retrieval and information recommendation, but for ChatGPT is information generation. So that's something more aggressive. All right. But pay attention, this evolutionary path is a one-way ticket for young people. So when you enjoy, like TikTok, maybe you will stay away from YouTube. When you enjoy YouTube, you don't want to go back to read CNN or Fox News. And when you read Fox News, CNN, you don't want to go to spend your 1 day or 2 in library. This can be really sad. Okay, simply compare these two things. So if I'm still looking for something about Trump, when you go to the library, and you will find a lot of books. And these books provide critical thinking from different viewpoints. Okay, some books may believe Trump is doing something good, while the other books may criticize Trump a lot. But after you read everything, you have a very comprehensive picture and enable your critical thinking, especially for young people. But if you use ChatGPT or some others, there is a very good chance in the future that the generation tacticals may tell you just very simple why Trump is Superman or why Trump is a super bad guy. Okay, so this is the one of the reasons why misinformation or disinformation is increasingly popular, because of AI facilitated filter bubbles. Okay, and AI can do a lot of things like summarization, personalization, social networking, entertainment, and question answering. Unfortunately, all of those are my research area. So, yeah, unfortunately, I mean, there is a good chance that a misuse of AI will reinforce people's ideologies, especially for young people, called AIGC, AI-generated content, will make your bubble more comfortable to stay. Okay, they can make your bubble really, really comfortable. And for instance, here, once again, I provide one thing from Toutiao. It's a Chinese company. It's AI assist content generation is being used. So it's very successful. So yeah, when AI will make your bubble more comfortable, do you want blue pill or red pill? this can be a question. But I think most people will just stay in their bubble. Most people. Especially I worry about young people. Young people, when they really addict to TikTok, and they have a much less chance to enable their own critical thinking. So this can be a problem, okay? And young people may tell you that, why I have to leave my bubble? I feel really comfortable here. Like this. The first one is a lot of people believe that, this is a Twitter I found yesterday, so it's still active there, okay? People believe Trump is the winner of president election. Well, the second one is the Chinese government say that US lab can be high chance to generate COVID-19. So a lot of people still believe it. So I summarize. This is the very last image. So to show you that misinformation, can we totally remove it? So my answer is technical-wise, yes, we can, or potentially can, but with a very high cost, like social cost, data cost, labor cost, algorithm cost of free speech, a lot of things. So do you really want to do that? This is a very critical question. So my answer, I put it there, we can always battle with misinformation. These efforts never stop. But we probably don't want to do something very aggressive because free speech is things still more important. Okay, and do we want to provide a centralized misinformation definition? So this one is also very risky, especially in the United States when we have a really big problem of social or political polarization, whether this is a good thing or not. And also accountability. So when you provide a very strong accountability, like in maybe China way, and so there's triggers concern of information censorship. And AI will make misinformation generation diffusion a lot easier. Okay, unfortunately. All right, that's everything. Thank you.
Dr. Liu, thanks so much. I'm going to ask a question first, so this gives you all a chance to think of your question. So, I mean, fundamentally, this is a categorization problem, right? I mean, you've got types of information, and what really struck me in your talk is that you could try to characterize how to distinguish between information and misinformation, but in many ways, what you were suggesting was the first thing to do is to try to identify misinformers rather than misinformation, right? So in other words, who is associated with the spread of misinformation, and let's eliminate those accounts rather than identifying particular bits of information as misinformation and searching for those. Is that a reasonable?
I would say this is not reasonable, but this is everyone's doing. So we find that compare with textual feature, account feature and account behavior feature and social network feature can provide another type of very important information to improve the performance of machine learning model, which is, like you said, classification problem. So when we apply the account and account behavior information, we can improve the model performance by maybe 3%, 5%, or 10% in different scenarios. So I would say in academic research and also in those big platforms right now, they are using this kind of information. But I just want you pay attention. These kind of features can be tricky because this will make your model to generate some biased information. Okay, so for instance, if I say something like COVID-19 may have some chips inside, this is weird, but maybe my future postings are okay. But platform may label my future messages like risky, so which is somehow unfair, I believe.
Oh, thanks. Questions from the audience?
Hello, thank you so much for being here. My name is Jessica Snyder, and I'm a cyber intelligence analyst with Booz Allen. And I was wondering, you mentioned during this talk, but also previously, about education and how important you believe that role is. So if the quote-unquote solution to disinformation and misinformation will require a diminishing of free speech, perhaps cognitive resilience and citizens' personal ability to vet sources and increase critical thinking is slow, but a more representative solution of free speech and our principles, founding principles in the U.S. So what changes would you like to see in education? Or do you think we could take that, like I said, might be a slower solution, less aggressive, but more constant?
I get an education in both China and the U.S. I get an undergraduate education before that in China, where I get my PhD education in the United States. And right now, I've been professor for more than 11 years. So I find in these two countries, right now I'm a father, so I find that both the countries, their education system have some problem. Have actually some serious problem, which will have a very high chance to facilitate, I won't call it misinformation, but the suppression of the bad information. So for example, when I am in China, so one thing I think very dangerous is their education is they say that basically Americans are evil. But Americans are evil, I mean, it's okay to say that, but show me the evidence and show me critical thinking. Okay, so I would appreciate when you don't just give the kids conclusion. I think when you give kids conclusion, when the kids do not have a capability to think, this can be very risky. So this is the reason, like, I'm sorry to say it, but I personally, I don't like Trump very much. But when my kid go back home, 6-year-old, my daughter come back home and say, Daddy, do you know Trump is a bad guy? I feel very uncomfortable. I feel this is a very, very risky. So when you educate the kids with a conclusion, and I think the education system has a problem. So we need to teach the kids, when the kid, because eventually later in the future, the kids in the future years, they will need to battle with the misinformation, disinformation. So they should have their own, like a cognitive, logical system to think about the problem independently. But I find that no matter in China and the United States, I don't know the other countries very well, but these two countries I know quite well. So both education system has some problem. The kids right now, they don't have enough capability for independent thinking and critical thinking. And also appreciate recent, like TikTok. I think young people really enjoy this kind of service. I also feel very disappointed. But this is not something we can say, stop everything, stop TikTok, stop YouTube, stop everything. That's impossible. But I think efforts need to be made, especially between the collaborations between computer scientists and social scientists should work together to find a better way for education. I think education is still something essential. Yeah. Sure.
Drew the distinction between authoritarian states and free societies, Europe and the United States versus the authoritarians in approaches to dealing with mis and disinformation. I actually think there's a big divide between the United States and Europe in these questions. I'm really struck by the fact that we're several hours into a conversation on disinformation and we're just getting to the point where we talk about regulation of social media platforms. And I'm a little bit hesitant to ask the question because I kind of think it's the wrong solution. But when you go to these conferences in Europe, the first solution they come to is regulation of social media platforms. And it's about which regulations should we have and how do we get the United States to impose them? Because these are all US-based tech companies, right? So, but I do want to ask the question of, in the kind of the spirit of the question that was just asked, what is the incremental, non-aggressive, useful approach that could possibly be taken toward tech regulation? Or do we throw that out altogether and this is a societal problem, this is a civil society problem, and government should stay out of it?
This is a very good question, but number one is I'm not an expert to provide you feedback, but I can give you some evidence that I find. Earlier, I have a conversation with a professor from China to talk about AI future, so who can be more successful in the AI competition. And this professor strongly believes China will be the winner for sure. And the reason he believes is when US have some very powerful, develop some new algorithm like ChatGPT, for instance, but US, especially Europe, will put very strong regulation concerns on those new technologies. So they say, if a new technology comes out, US policymakers will slow it down. Europe will kill it. well, China will do that whatever they can. And that's the reason he believes, maybe he's wrong, but I just provide this thought. He believes Europe never win. American provide foundation technologies, but eventually China will benefit from that. Because the cost of policy policy makers provide additional costs for those technologies. China will minimize it, okay? Because they have a more global view. Their global view is they want to win this competition between China and U.S. So they have more ambitious goal and compare with U.S. and China. So that's one thing. Well, the other thing, I think to address your question, another related thing is earlier, a number of more than 1,000 scientists signed the petition letter to say we should take a break for these ChatGPT investigations. Okay, so we because we don't know what's the social consequences of ChatGPT when this is something so powerful and we are not fully ready for that. And I know a lot of scientists really strongly support that from Europe. Okay, they really believe this is some big concern. But when I'm giving the talk, go back to my university, WPI, I give a talk a couple weeks ago. I say, this won't work. This never work because if Microsoft don't do that, other company will do. If US don't do that, China will do. So right now, this is, from policy, for policymakers, for researchers, we can always do something. But for AI, we won't stop it. We won't. That's impossible. Okay, so I just provided these two cases. So we can all think about that creatively.
We have time for one more question.
Sure.
Thank you. Coming at this as a historian, and maybe this goes back to the previous panel as well, I wonder if there is value in thinking about the social component of the spread of misinformation and disinformation. And as a historian, I can tell you that during World War II, the US government went through a tremendous panic about disinformation and was very worried that Germans would use disinformation as a way of destabilizing the US. But when they analyzed rumor in the United States, they found that Americans were passing rumors not from Germany, but from their own racist imagination. And the problem was Americans disinforming one another. But the point isn't where did the disinformation came from. The point is the solution at the time included an understanding of why people repeat untrue things when there isn't perfect knowledge in a society, and it just seems smarter. And they found that repeating disinformation correlated with intelligence and a desire to seem smart. So part of the solution was to mock the repetition of disinformation and make it not a thing that smart people did to ingratiate themselves and be of value to their social network. So where I'm going with this is asking if part of what we need to go after is the connective tissue of repetition of misinformation and disinformation, and to say why spread that, why repeat. And this goes to something Nina Yankovic talked about informational distancing. We know it's rude to cough on somebody. Shouldn't it also be rude to pass on a exaggerated and distorted story if that is negatively incentivized, as repeating rumors was in wartime? Surely that is part of this story, and it's something we also need to think about, to go after the reasons that people repeat untrue things within their social networks. And how do we develop a conversation around digital citizenship, restraint, and looking like an idiot if you repeat something that is really obviously untrue in order to please your social network?
This is a very good question, but I would challenge you a little bit because right now, people generated information and compare with the people generated information in World War II for different reasons. Right now, a lot of people, for example, young people generate information from TikTok. So I won't say all of them, but a very strong motivation for them to generate information is to make money. So because the click, also in YouTube, so the click they will get income by click number. Okay, so the more people click that, the more income they will get. So the young people, of course, some of them interested in the ideologies, but a lot of other young users, they just generate content for fun and for income. So they generate information in a very creative way and also facilitated by the AI algorithm. So I would say their primary goal is not to just generate the true information. This is not their biggest problem. Their biggest problem is how to get more clicks. So you can find that when they want to compete with, like when they're trying to attract people from global or from the whole country. So this won't be very effective. So what they do is they just need to entertain the people in their bubbles. So that's a more smart and effective way to get additional click. So for example, if I'm in the group like say I support a Trump group, okay? So even though I don't like Trump, but I can still generate a lot of Trump support videos, short videos, because I will get additional payment. I won't say every people do the same thing, but I can say that a lot of young people right now, they generated this kind of videos because of the income reason. So I would say in the future, like for AI field and still, the reason I don't like this word cost, because it will make my talks very like money driven, very commercial, but actually it's not. I really worry about that. So when technology married with commercial, some bad things may come out. So I would like to challenge everybody here. So think about the future, think about the solution. So when people generate information for very different reasons for young people, so we should find a way to deal with it. Okay, once again, I'm a computer scientist. I'm not smart enough to provide a solution to do that. But what I know is if we want to provide a strategy, so the social scientists and computer scientists and the policymakers should work together. Okay, so, but this is something very essential.
Do we have time for one more question?
Unfortunately, I think we're over. We do? Never mind, we do.
You have time for one question?
Short question, yeah.
Short one.
Okay, Xiao, you and I have been having this conversation for a long time now. On your slide, I think you meant to say no censorship, not censorship, right? So there's this triangle between no disinformation and free speech and no censorship. And I mean, of course, you can't have all those things at the same time, but isn't the analogy here to something like crime? You could have no crime by putting everyone in prison, right? But that would be a terrible thing to do, right? And you could have no prisons at all, but then of course, you'd have some crime and that would also be terrible. So isn't the idea that you try to do with this information what we do in the criminal justice system, which is go after the criminals, right? And I say that not go after the crime, but go after the criminals. And the reason I say that is because this, as you know, the Center for Countering Digital Hate in 2019 found that 65% of the anti-vax propaganda on Twitter was due to 12 people. And I checked, and 8 of those people are still on Twitter. Why are they still on Twitter? I mean, that's not a social good, right? That's everybody else in the elevator breathing somebody else's cigar smoke. How is that? So yes, there's going to be some loss of freedom of speech for the people who you're deplatforming. But those people need to be silenced and deplatformed because they're committing crimes against the rest of us, aren't they?
I totally appreciate that. I agree with you, Lee. So yes. So if someone doing something very aggressive on the social network, so we should do something and also make them legally responsible for what they did. But what I'm in my talk, I just say we should pay attention. So because most of the people, if you find a very small amount of people generate a lot of information, for instance, from in American president election, you find a small amount of people and also Russia and generate a lot of fake account and generate a lot of fake information. So absolutely, all the countries, not just the US, they should do something. Okay, this is definitely criminal. But I just say that when we talk about misinformation for general audience, because as you said in your talk, panel discussion earlier, you said most of people generate misinformation because they believe it. I just talk about for this kind of people, we should pay a lot of attention. We should be more cautious when we make any decision aggressively, because the social cost behind that can be huge. So once again, if you kick them out from one system, another system will appear. This is not something we like, right? So this can be very, very risky. The cost of such thing can be very high, which I may not give any suggestion, but in this talk, I just say people should be aware of the cost when we do something aggressive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Liu, for your wonderful talk. Thanks.
Thank you very much.